Welcome back to Midnight Affair Tales. Thank you for joining us. The wind roared across the desert, kicking up sand that stung Noah Calloway's skin like 1,000 needles. He crouched behind a rusted vehicle, gripping his rifle, his heartbeat steady despite the chaos around him. Bullets sliced through the air, and his squad moved with surgical precision, taking down their targets one by one. Target secured, his commander's voice crackled in his earpiece. We move out in 5. Noah exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow. Another mission, another battlefield. For 6 months he had been out here. No contact, no updates from home. Just war. But now it was over. He was going home. For the first time in a long time, a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Savannah. His wife. His reason for surviving all this. He pictured her waiting for him at the airport, running into his arms like she always did. The warmth of home, the scent of her perfume, the peace of finally being back. That dream was what kept him going. As the chopper lifted off, he glanced at his wedding ring, twisting it between his fingers. Had she missed him as much as he missed her? Little did he know, his homecoming would be nothing like the dream he imagined. Noah stepped off the plane, inhaling the crisp night air. The weight of the mission still clung to him, but nothing could dull the excitement bubbling in his chest. He was home. He searched the crowd, expecting to see Savannah, waiting eagerly like she always did. But she wasn't there. Strange. Maybe she was running late. He pulled out his phone and dialed her number. Straight to voicemail. A small frown creased his brow, but he brushed it off. She must be asleep. The cab ride home felt longer than usual. When he finally pulled up to their house, a strange feeling settled in his gut. The porch light was on, but something felt off. He stepped inside. The house was clean, quiet, too quiet. Usually, Savannah would have candles lit, soft music playing. But there was nothing. Just an eerie stillness. Then he noticed something. A jacket. A man's jacket draped over the couch. His stomach twisted. He walked further in, his trained eyes scanning every detail. A half-empty glass of whiskey sat on the coffee table, not Savannah's drink of choice. The smell of cologne. Not his. A deep, gnawing dread clawed at his chest. He turned toward the bedroom. The door was slightly open. And then, a sound. A laugh. A man's voice. Noah's blood ran cold. Who the hell was in his house? Noah's heartbeat pounded like war drums in his ears. His hands clenched into fists as he pushed the door open. There she was. Savannah. His wife. Wrapped in the sheets they had once shared. Her bare shoulder peeked out, the unmistakable form of another man beside her. A rush of heat surged through him, anger so sharp it nearly blinded him. But he didn't make a sound. A soldier doesn't strike without strategy. Instead he stepped back. Slowly. Silently. His training took over. Observe. Process. Plan. He turned on his phone camera. Snap. Snap. Evidence. Then the final proof. Savannah giggled softly and whispered, "I love you, Asher." Noah's world stopped. Asher. His best friend. The man who had once sworn loyalty to him. The man he had trusted with his life. Bow rose in his throat. His grip tightened around his phone. The urge to storm in, tear them apart, end it all right there was overwhelming. But no. That would be too easy. Too merciful. Noah exhaled, his mind already working, calculating. They thought he was weak. That he wouldn't find out. That he wouldn't do anything. They were wrong. He turned, walking out as quietly as he came in. This wasn't over. Not even close. This was only the beginning. Noah sat in his truck, parked a block away from the house he had built with Savannah. His knuckles were white against the steering wheel, his pulse pounding like a war drum in his ears. His instincts screamed at him to go back, to kick down that door and make Asher feel every ounce of betrayal he had delivered. But Noah was not a man who acted on impulse. A soldier doesn't move without a plan. He inhaled sharply, gripping his phone tighter. The photos, the recordings, they burned on the screen, searing proof of his wife's lies, his best friend's treachery. His mind replayed her voice in a loop. "I love you, Asher." A hollow laugh escaped his lips. Well, she didn't know the meaning of the word. A part of him wanted to confront her now, demand answers. But what would that accomplish? Yelling? A fight? Tears? No. That wasn't justice. That wasn't the punishment she deserved. She had made her choice. Now he would make his. Noah's training kicked in. He needed to gather more intel. Just like on a mission, he would observe, analyze, and only strike when the time was right. Pulling out a spare phone, he hacked into their Wi-Fi. Within seconds, he had access to her messages. And what he found made his blood turn to ice. Messages spanning months. Romantic texts. Detailed plans to be together. And then, the final dagger to the heart. Savannah had been talking to a lawyer. She was planning to leave him. Noah's jaw clenched. She thought she would walk away untouched. She had no idea what was coming. Noah forced himself to breathe, steadying the rage simmering beneath his skin. Revenge wasn't about acting first. It was about striking when they least expected it. The next morning he returned home as if nothing had changed. The scent of coffee lingered in the kitchen, and Savannah greeted him with a fake, lazy smile. "Hey baby," she murmured, wrapping her arms around him. The same lips that had whispered love to another man last night. Noah stiffened but didn't pull away. "Not yet." "Hey," he said, his voice calm. Too calm. Savannah looked up at him, searching his face. "You okay?" Noah smiled. A soldier's smile. A mask. "Yeah," he said. "Just tired. Long mission." She kissed his cheek, oblivious to the storm brewing inside him. For the next 2 weeks, Noah played his role perfectly. He acted like the loving husband, bringing home flowers, taking her out to dinner. But behind the scenes he was laying the groundwork for her downfall. He transferred their joint bank account into a private one. He set up surveillance in the house. He even befriended her lawyer, secretly feeding him information. Savannah had no idea she was walking into a trap. She thought she had won. That she had fooled him. Noah almost pitied her. Almost. At night he would sit on the porch, scrolling through their texts, memorizing their plans. One message from Asher stood out. "Once I sell my company, we'll have enough money to leave him. Soon, baby. Just hold on." Noah smirked. Selling his company? Not if I can help it. This was war. And he never lost a war. You won't believe what happens next. Keep reading. Noah's revenge is only beginning. The first strike. Noah sat in his truck, parked outside Dunham Tech, Asher's multi-million-dollar software company. He had spent years watching Asher build it from the ground up, had even helped him get government contracts through his military connections. Now he was going to burn it to the ground. He cracked his knuckles and made a single phone call. "Tell the investors," he said coldly. "The deal is dead." On the other end his contact hesitated. "You sure? This will destroy his valuation." Noah's jaw tightened. That's the point. The call ended and within hours the damage was done. A chain reaction of events unfolded. Investors pulled out. Clients demanded refunds. Asher's merger fell through. His company, once thriving, was bleeding money. Noah watched from the shadows, his lips curving into a smirk. It was just the beginning. Savannah, of course, had no idea. She was too busy sneaking around, thinking she was untouchable. That night, as she sat across from him at dinner, chatting about her day, Noah's phone buzzed. A text from Asher. "Shit's falling apart. We might have to push back the plan." Savannah's betrayal had cost him everything. And she didn't even know it yet. Noah took a sip of his whiskey, meeting her gaze with icy amusement. "You okay?" Savannah asked. Noah smiled. "Perfect." She had no idea. But soon she would. Savannah had always been a master at deception. She had played her role so well, a devoted wife, a loving partner. But Noah had been trained to see through lies. And now he watched as the cracks in her mask began to show. She was nervous. He could tell. Small things at first, her phone never left her side. She checked over her shoulder when she walked into a room. She smiled too much, too forced. Noah played along, pretending not to notice. But every move she made he analyzed. Every mistake he logged. One evening he found her on the phone, her voice hushed. "I know, Asher," she whispered. "But Noah doesn't suspect anything. We just have to wait a little longer." A cruel smile formed on Noah's lips as he stood in the hallway listening. Savannah thought she was in control. She had no idea the walls were closing in on her. The first real move had to be flawless. Noah had waited, gathered enough evidence, calculated every possible reaction. Now it was time to set the trap. He called Savannah from work. "Dinner tonight? Let's go somewhere fancy." She hesitated. He could hear it. "Sure. That sounds great." "Perfect. That evening, they arrived at one of Savannah's favorite upscale restaurants. Candlelight flickered on the tables, the scent of expensive wine filled the air. She had no idea she was walking into her own downfall. Halfway through dinner, Noah excused himself. But instead of heading to the restroom, he stepped outside and made a single phone call. A few minutes later, Asher walked into the restaurant. Savannah's eyes widened in panic as she saw him. She frantically reached for her phone, probably to warn him. But it was too late. Asher had already spotted Noah. For a split second, fear flickered across his face. He knew. He had walked straight into a trap. Noah leaned back in his chair, sipping his whiskey. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Savannah forced a nervous laugh. "Nothing. Just surprised to see Asher here." Noah chuckled. "Small world, huh?" Asher looked pale. He opened his mouth but nothing came out. He had no idea if Noah knew. And that's exactly how Noah wanted it. He wanted them to squirm. The car ride home was silent. Savannah stared out the window, her fingers gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. Noah drove calmly, his face unreadable. Then without warning he pulled over. The tires screeched as the car stopped on the empty road. Savannah flinched. "Noah? What are you?" "Get out," he said, his voice sharp as steel. Her breath hitched. What?" Noah turned to her, his eyes dark, calculating. "You heard me. Get out." Her chest rose and fell rapidly. "Why are you acting like this?" He leaned in close, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Because I know, Savannah." She froze. Noah tilted his head, watching her, his smirk cold, emotionless. "You really thought I wouldn't find out?" Her lip quivered. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Wrong answer." Noah let out a dry chuckle. "Oh, Savannah. You're a terrible liar. But here's the thing, you should have been honest. Because now it's too late." She opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Noah reached into his pocket and tossed a flash drive onto her lap. Her hands shook as she picked it up. What is this?" Noah's smirk grew. "Everything. Videos, screenshots, messages, bank transactions. Every detail of her affair." Her breath came in sharp gasps. "Noah, please?" He held up a hand. "I don't want to hear it. You made your bed. Now you're going to lie in it." A single tear slid down her cheek. "What are you going to do?" Noah's jaw tightened. "You'll find out soon enough." Then, without another word, he hit the gas, driving them back home in complete silence. But inside, Noah was already preparing his next move. Because this was only the beginning. The house was too quiet. Noah sat in the living room, the dim glow of the lamp casting long shadows across the walls. The weight of what had happened tonight sat heavily in the air. Savannah hadn't said a word since they got home. She stood in the kitchen now, gripping the edge of the counter like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her breathing was shallow, her eyes darting toward him every few seconds like she expected him to snap. But Noah just sat there, watching, waiting. The flash drive still lay on the coffee table between them, a ticking time bomb of proof. He finally broke the silence. "Say something, Savannah." She flinched, blinking rapidly. "What do you want me to say?" Noah exhaled sharply, rubbing his fingers together. "I don't know. Maybe start with the truth." Her lips parted, then closed. She looked away. Noah, I made a mistake." He let out a cold laugh. "A mistake." His fingers tapped against the wooden table. "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is missing a phone call. You don't accidentally sleep with my best friend, Savannah." Her face twisted in pain, and for a moment he saw something that almost looked like guilt. But he wasn't a fool. He had spent years studying human behavior. He knew the difference between guilt and regret. Savannah wasn't sorry she had done it. She was sorry she got caught. He leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "How long?" Her throat bobbed. "How long?" His voice cut through the silence like a blade. She swallowed. 6 months. Noah's jaw tightened. 6 months. The entire time he had been risking his life on a classified mission, she had been rolling in bed with Asher, his best friend. Noah let out a low chuckle, shaking his head. "So while I was out there, dodging bullets, fighting for my life, you were here with him." Her eyes watered. "Noah, please, it's not like that." His hand slammed down on the table, making her jump. "Don't lie." The silence that followed was deafening. Savannah opened her mouth, but no words came out. Good. She was finally learning. Noah stood up, grabbing the flash drive. I'm going to bed. She blinked. What? You heard me. He turned, heading toward the stairs. We'll talk soon. But not tonight. And with that, he left her standing there, drowning in the silence. The next morning, Savannah woke up to an empty bed. For the first time in years, Noah wasn't beside her. She sat up quickly, rubbing her temples. Last night had been a nightmare. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she could see Noah's cold stare, the way he had looked right through her. And the flash drive. That damn flash drive. She needed to get rid of it. She rushed downstairs, her heartbeat hammering. But as soon as she stepped into the living room, her stomach dropped. Noah was already up, sitting at the kitchen counter drinking coffee. Her eyes darted toward the coffee table. The flash drive was gone. Her hands curled into fists. Noah, we need to talk. He didn't look up. Just sipped his coffee, flipping through a stack of papers. Something about them made Savannah's stomach twist. She took a hesitant step forward. Noah? He finally glanced up, and what she saw in his eyes made her blood run cold. He was done. Done playing nice. Done pretending. He slid the papers across the counter toward her. Go ahead, he said, his voice eerily calm. Read it. Savannah's fingers trembled as she picked them up. And then, the room spun. Divorce papers. Her heart pounded. Noah, wait. You were going to leave me, weren't you? His voice was almost amused. You and Asher. You were just waiting for the right moment. Savannah felt her world crumbling. Noah, please. I don't want a divorce. You don't? He tilted his head. That's funny. Because I do. Tears welled in her eyes. I made a mistake. You made a choice, Noah cut in, his voice sharper than steel. Savannah's hands shook as she looked at the papers again. No settlement. No money. Nothing. Noah stood up, sliding his coffee mug into the sink. You have two options, Savannah. She swallowed hard. What options? You sign the papers and walk away quietly, he said, stepping closer. Or. Her breath hitched. Or what? A slow smirk crossed his face. Or I release everything. Savannah's blood ran cold. Noah leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. Every text. Every picture. Every video. Sent to your parents, your friends, your job. He pulled out his phone, tapping the screen. I even have the local news on standby. Imagine what happens when your name hits the headlines. Her knees buckled. You wouldn't? Noah's smirk widened. Wouldn't I? Savannah's chest heaved, panic setting in. You wanted to ruin me, Noah said, voice turning colder. But you forgot something, Savannah? She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. Please? Noah's eyes darkened. I ruin people for a living. Savannah sat frozen. The papers in her hands felt like lead. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Noah was supposed to beg. Yell. Break. But he wasn't breaking. He was winning. Her voice came out weak. Noah, please, we can fix this. But he was already moving past her, grabbing his keys. We're done, Savannah, he said simply. Sign the papers. She wanted to argue. To scream. But as the front door slammed shut behind him, she knew. Noah wasn't the one losing everything. She was. And it was only the beginning. Savannah sat on the couch, gripping the divorce papers so tightly her nails dug into the pages. Her pulse pounded in her ears, her breath shallow. Noah wasn't bluffing. If she didn't sign, he would release everything. Every message, every video, every picture. And she knew what that meant. Her reputation? Ruined. Her job? Gone. Her family? Disgusted. She had never felt fear like this before. She needed to fix this. Grabbing her phone, she dialed Asher's number with shaky hands. He picked up on the second ring. Savannah? His voice was tight, stressed. What the hell is happening? I just got a call. Some of my investors are pulling out. Noah did something. I know he did. Savannah sucked in a breath. He knows Asher. He knows everything. Silence. Then Asher cursed under his breath. How bad is it? Savannah clenched her jaw. Bad. He has proof. And he's giving me two choices. Sign the divorce papers and walk away with nothing, or he exposes everything. Asher groaned. That bastard. Of course he wouldn't just let it go. Savannah's grip on the phone tightened. I can't lose everything, Asher. I need you to fix this. There was a long pause before he finally said, I'll handle it. But something about the way he said it sent a shiver down Savannah's spine. Noah sat in his truck, parked outside a small bar on the outskirts of town. His fingers drummed against the steering wheel as he watched the entrance through the rearview mirror. He knew Asher would try something. The man was desperate. And desperate men made stupid mistakes. Sure enough, Asher arrived, his expensive suit slightly wrinkled, his face tight with stress. Noah watched as he stepped inside. Noah followed. The bar was dimly lit, the scent of cheap whiskey and cigarette smoke clinging to the air. Asher sat in a booth near the back, already nursing a drink. Noah slid into the seat across from him. Asher stiffened. What do you want, Noah? Noah smirked, signaling the bartender for a whiskey. You already know the answer to that. Asher scoffed. You really think you can destroy me? Noah took a slow sip of his drink. I don't think. I know. Asher exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Look, let's be rational. You can't just ruin my entire life because of... Noah's hand slammed down on the table. The glass rattled. Asher flinched. You slept with my wife. Noah's voice was dangerously low. While I was out there fighting for this country, you were in my house, in my bed. And you think I'm just going to let that slide? Asher swallowed hard but tried to keep his composure. It wasn't personal, man. Noah let out a dark chuckle. Oh, it's personal. He leaned in. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to lose your company. You're going to lose your money, your reputation, your credibility. And when I'm done, you'll be nothing. Asher's jaw clenched. You don't have that kind of power. Noah tilted his head, studying him. Don't I? He slid his phone across the table. An email was already drafted. One tap. That's all it would take for every investor in Asher's company to receive damning evidence of financial fraud. Asher's face turned pale. Noah smirked. You thought I was only watching Savannah? He chuckled. I've been watching you too. For the first time, Asher looked genuinely afraid. And Noah wasn't even done yet. Savannah's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and frowned. Asher. She hesitated before answering. Did you fix it? Asher's voice was shaking. Savannah, we're screwed. Her blood ran cold. What do you mean? Noah, he has everything. He's not just going after you, he's coming after me. My company, my money, my investors. He has dirt on all of it. Savannah gritted her teeth. So do something. Fight back. Asher let out a bitter laugh. Against him? Savannah, he's a goddamn ghost. He's been trained for this. He's already 10 steps ahead. Savannah felt a wave of panic rise in her throat. I can't lose everything, Asher. Asher's voice turned cold. Then you better start thinking about yourself. Savannah blinked. What's that supposed to mean? I mean, Asher said slowly, if I go down, I'm taking you with me. Savannah's breath hitched. You think Noah's going to stop at just embarrassing you? Asher continued. No. He's going to destroy you. You need to get ahead of this before he buries us both. Savannah clenched her jaw. So what do you suggest? There was a long pause before Asher finally said, we flipped the script. Savannah frowned. How? Asher's voice was eerily calm. We make him look like the bad guy. Savannah's heart pounded. You want to lie? It's not lying, Asher said. It's survival. Savannah swallowed hard. If they could convince people that Noah was dangerous, manipulative, unstable, maybe they could turn things around. It was risky. But at this point it was their only option. Savannah sat at the edge of the bed, gripping her phone tightly. Her world was collapsing. Asher's words echoed in her head. We flipped the script. We make him look like the bad guy. She wasn't sure if she could do it. Noah had never been abusive, never been violent. But if she didn't act soon, she'd be the one left in ruins. Her fingers trembled as she typed out a message. Savannah, I need to talk to you. It's important. The reply came almost instantly. Her mother, of course, sweetheart. Are you okay? Savannah swallowed the lump in her throat. This was her first move. If she could convince her family that Noah had changed, that he had been dangerous, manipulative, unstable, then maybe she could still come out of this on top. She forced a deep breath and typed her response. Savannah, It's about Noah. I'm scared of him, Mom. Noah sat in his home office, fingers flying across his keyboard. He had spent the last 48 hours dismantling Asher's world. The financial fraud evidence? Sent to investors. The hidden clauses in Asher's business contracts? Exposed to his competitors. Every deal Asher had been working on? Dead in the water. Noah leaned back, smirking as he read the latest headlines. Tech giant Asher Dunham faces allegations of corporate misconduct. He took a sip of whiskey. Good. Let's see him recover from that. Just then his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. Noah, you need to know what Savannah is saying about you. His smirk faded. He stared at the message. Then, slowly he replied. Noah, who is this? A second later, a photo popped up. A screenshot of Savannah's texts. Noah's chest tightened as he read the words. Savannah. Noah has been different since he got back. He scares me sometimes. Savannah. I don't feel safe around him. Savannah, I think he might be watching me, tracking my phone. Noah let out a slow breath. So this was their play. They wanted to make him look like the villain. Make him the unstable one. A slow, cold smile spread across his face. Amateurs. Savannah sat at the coffee shop, waiting. Her mother was meeting her in 10 minutes. She had rehearsed this moment over and over. She would cry. Tell her mother how Noah had changed, how he wasn't the same man anymore. Maybe it wasn't completely true, but what choice did she have? She stirred her coffee, heart hammering in her chest. Then the bell over the door rang. She looked up and her stomach dropped. Noah was standing there. Her breath caught in her throat. Noah walked toward her slowly, calm, unreadable. When he reached her table, he pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. Savannah tried to keep her voice steady. What are you doing here? Noah leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. You tell me, Savannah. Why am I getting texts about you calling me dangerous? She swallowed hard. I never said that. Noah chuckled. Don't lie to me. Savannah opened her mouth, but before she could respond, Noah pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward her. Her blood ran cold. A recording of her voice. Savannah, I think he might be watching me, tracking my phone. Noah tilted his head. You were saying? Her hands went numb. How did you get that? Noah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You really thought you could turn this on me? After everything you did? Savannah's lip quivered. I didn't mean to. He held up a finger. Stop. The command was so sharp, so final that she froze. Noah leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You think you're scared of me now? Savannah swallowed. Noah smiled. You haven't seen anything yet. He stood up, sliding his phone back into his pocket. Then, with one last glance at her pale, trembling face, he turned and walked out of the cafe. Savannah sat there, shaking. She had played her hand too soon. And now Noah was coming for everything. Pause here. Dear good listeners. A lot of people listen to the story, but only 9% subscribe. I work hard to bring you amazing stories every day. This time, my goal is to hit 2,000 subscribers this month. So, my awesome audience, show some love, hit that subscribe button now, and must tell me in the comments section where you are watching my videos. Thanks. Let's continue our story. No more mercy. Noah drove with one hand on the wheel, his mind sharp, calculated. Savannah had made her move. She tried to paint him as the villain. A dangerous, unstable, controlling husband. It was a bold attempt. But she had underestimated him. As he pulled into his driveway, he made another call. A familiar voice answered. It's done. Noah smirked. Good. Send it out. Within seconds, a chain reaction would begin. He had found Savannah's biggest secret, one even Asher didn't know. She had cheated before. Multiple times. Before Asher, before the marriage, Savannah had been a serial liar. Noah had proof. And now, the world would see it. An email blast. Screenshots, texts, voice messages. Sent to her family, her job, her friends. The headline was simple. The truth about Savannah. Noah leaned back in his chair, watching as the messages began to send. She thought she could destroy him. Now she was the one about to burn. Savannah sat on the couch, phone clutched in her hands, tears streaking down her face. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Text after text. Call after call. Her mother. Her sister. Her boss. All asking the same question. Savannah, is this true? She scrolled through the messages, her stomach twisting in horror. Noah had exposed everything. Screenshots of her old texts with other men. Years of lies. People she once trusted were turning against her. Her mother's message was the worst. I raised you better than this. I'm ashamed. Savannah choked back a sob, gripping her phone as panic overtook her. This couldn't be happening. A new text popped up. Asher, what the hell did you do? Savannah gasped. Noah must have hit Asher too. Her world was falling apart, and she had no idea how to stop it. Asher slammed his phone on his desk, his entire body shaking with rage. Noah had just ruined him. His investors had seen the emails. His employees were whispering. The fraud allegations were already spreading. He needed to do something. Dialing Savannah, he gritted his teeth. Pick up, pick up. Finally she answered. Asher, she sobbed. Noah, he ruined everything. Asher clenched his jaw. We need a plan. Savannah sniffled. What do we do? Asher ran a hand through his hair. We go after him. Silence. Then Savannah whispered, How? Asher's voice turned dark. We take everything from him. His career, his credibility, his freedom. Savannah's breath hitched. You mean? Yes. Asher's eyes burned with hatred. We make him the villain. Savannah hesitated. Asher. Noah isn't violent. Asher's voice sharpened. That doesn't matter. We make people think he is. Savannah closed her eyes. If they did this, there would be no going back. But after what Noah had done, she was willing to risk it all. Savannah paced in her apartment, her mind racing. Everything was falling apart. Her reputation? Destroyed. Her mother? Ashamed of her. Her friends? Turning their backs. She had nothing left except Asher. But now, even he was slipping. Her phone buzzed. A message from Asher. Asher, meet me. We need to talk. No. Her stomach twisted. She knew what this was about. She grabbed her keys and left. Asher was waiting for her at his office, the blinds shut, tension heavy in the air. Savannah swallowed. What's the plan? Asher turned to her, his expression hard. We make him dangerous. Her breath hitched. You mean? He nodded. We file a restraining order. We tell the police he's been following you, threatening you, that he's dangerous. Savannah's chest tightened. Noah wasn't dangerous. He had never touched her, never hurt her. But after what he had done to them, maybe he deserved it. She hesitated. Do you really think they'll believe us? Asher smirked. They don't need to believe it completely. They just need doubt. And once we plant that doubt, Noah's entire life, his career, his military clearance, his credibility, it all crumbles. Savannah took a shaky breath. She had to do this. She had no other choice. Noah was in his garage, finishing his morning workout when he heard a knock at the door. Something about it felt off. He grabbed a towel, wiped his face, and walked over. When he opened the door, his stomach tightened. 2 police officers stood outside. Mr. Calloway? One of them asked. Noah's jaw clenched. That's me. The officer sighed. We need you to come with us for questioning. There's been a complaint filed against you. Noah's muscles tensed. A complaint? He kept his face neutral. On what grounds? The officer shifted uncomfortably. Stalking. Harassment. Threats of violence. Noah went still. A cold, sharp anger sliced through him. Savannah. She had really done it. He exhaled slowly, stepping aside. Let me grab my jacket. He wouldn't fight this. Not yet. But if Savannah thought she had won, she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. The police station was cold and sterile, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Noah sat across from the detective, his hands clasped on the table. Come. Controlled. You understand why you're here, Mr. Calloway? The detective asked. Noah leaned back in his chair. I have a good guess. The detective slid a file across the table. Savannah Calloway has provided text messages, call logs, and statements claiming you've been harassing her. Noah's lips twitched in amusement. She really went all out. He glanced at the papers. Fake texts. Edited call logs. A completely fabricated story. He exhaled slowly. Detective, let me save you some time. This is all a lie. The officer frowned. You have proof of that? Noah's smile was slow, calculated. I have more than proof. he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. With a few taps, he pulled up a hidden recording, Savannah and Asher's conversation from the night before. The detective pressed play. Asher's voice came through clear as day. "We file a restraining order. We tell the police he's been following you, threatening you, that he's dangerous." Savannah's hesitant reply followed. "Do you really think they'll believe us?" Then Asher again, "They don't need to believe it completely. They just need doubt." The detective's expression darkened. Noah leaned forward, his voice smooth as steel. "Now, detective, do I look like the problem here?" The detective replayed the recording, his expression unreadable. The room was silent, except for the sound of Savannah and Asher plotting against Noah. When the recording ended, Noah sat back in his chair, his face calm but his eyes dark with amusement. The detective exhaled, rubbing his temples. "So, let me get this straight, they faked the entire harassment claim?" Noah nodded. "Correct." The detective leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "Jesus Christ." Noah tilted his head. "Let me guess, she was very convincing, wasn't she? Crying, shaking, telling you she was afraid?" The detective sighed. "Honestly? Yeah. But this," he gestured at the phone. "This changes everything." Noah leaned forward. "Now, detective, tell me, what happens to people who file false police reports?" The detective's lips pressed into a thin line. "It's a serious offense." Noah smirked. "Good. Because I want her arrested." The detective hesitated. "Look, I understand why you're pissed." Noah's eyes flashed. "Pissed?" His voice was sharp as a blade. "She tried to ruin my life, my career, my reputation. If I didn't have this recording, what do you think would have happened to me?" The detective didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both knew the answer. False accusations had destroyed men before. But Noah? He wasn't just any man. He was prepared. The detective sighed. "I'll need to take this to the DA's office." Noah stood up, sliding his phone back into his pocket. "Do that. And while you're at it, tell Savannah her time is up." And with that he walked out. Savannah sat at her kitchen table, staring at her phone. She was waiting. Waiting for the news. Waiting for the moment the police called to tell her Noah was in custody. She had practiced her lines. She would cry. She would sound broken. Convincing. And then he would be out of her life for good. Her phone rang. Her heart leapt. She answered quickly. "Hello." Silence. Then a voice she did not expect. "Savannah Calloway?" Her stomach dropped. "Why, yes. This is Detective Marshall with the NYPD. We need you to come down to the station for questioning." Her breath caught. "Wait, what? Why?" There was a pause. Then, "We have evidence that you and Asher Dunham filed a false police report against your husband." Savannah's body went numb. Her grip tightened on the phone. "No. No, that's not true. We have recordings proving otherwise." Savannah's world shattered. "Miss Calloway," the detective continued, "if you don't come in voluntarily, we'll send officers to bring you in." Savannah felt like she was drowning. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to win. Asher. Asher. Her mind raced. He had said he had a plan. That they would flip the script. So how the hell had Noah gotten proof? Panic clawed at her chest. She needed to talk to Asher. As soon as she hung up, she dialed his number. No answer. She called again. Nothing. Then a text popped up. "Asher, don't call me again." Savannah's breath hitched. He was abandoning her. Noah stood outside the police station watching as the black SUV pulled up to the curb. The door opened. Savannah stepped out, her face pale, her hands shaking. She refused to look at him. Noah crossed his arms, tilting his head. "Not the homecoming you expected, huh?" Savannah's jaw tightened. "Go to hell." Noah smirked. "Oh, sweetheart. I already dragged you there with me." She turned to the detective beside her. "Can I speak to you privately?" The detective shook his head. "We do questioning in the interrogation room, Miss Calloway." Savannah let out a shaky breath, nodding as she walked inside. Noah watched, his amusement never fading. This was exactly how it was supposed to go. He had let her dig her grave. He had handed her the shovel. And now, she was buried. Savannah sat in the cold interrogation room, her hands shaking against the steel table. This couldn't be happening. She had walked into the police station thinking she could control the narrative, thinking she could talk her way out of it. But now, the moment she sat down, the detective played the recording. Her own voice filled the small room. "We file a restraining order. We tell the police he's been following you, threatening you, that he's dangerous." Her breath hitched. The detective paused the audio. "That's your voice, isn't it?" Savannah swallowed. Answer the question, Miss Calloway." Her heart pounded. She had to think. She had to get out of this. "I was scared," she blurted. "Noah has been unpredictable." The detective cut her off. "That's not what this recording suggests. This recording suggests that you and Asher Dunham knowingly fabricated a police report." Savannah's hands curled into fists. Asher. That coward hadn't even shown up. Her mind raced. She couldn't go down for this alone. She took a deep breath. "It wasn't just me." The detective leaned back. "Go on." Savannah clenched her jaw. If she was going down, Asher was going with her. Across town, Asher sat in his high-rise office, his fingers drumming against the desk. His phone buzzed. "Savannah, I told them everything." His stomach dropped. Before he could respond, his office door burst open. Two men in suits stepped inside, badges flashing. "Asher Dunham?" one of them asked. Asher's throat tightened. "Yes." The agent held up a piece of paper. "An arrest warrant. Asher Dunham, you are under arrest for filing a false police report, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice." His mind spun. "Wait, no." The agents grabbed him. Cold steel snapped around his wrists. Asher thrashed. "Savannah set me up. She was part of it too." The agent gave him a cold look. "All we know. We just got off the phone with the DA. You're both being charged." Panic clawed at Asher's chest. This wasn't supposed to happen. Noah was supposed to be the one going down. But now, he had lost everything. Noah sat on the steps of his house, the cool night air wrapping around him. It was over. Savannah had been arrested. Asher had been arrested. The people who had tried to destroy him had finally destroyed themselves. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. He opened it. "Savannah, are you happy now?" Noah smirked. She still didn't get it. "Noah, I wasn't looking for happiness. Just justice." A long pause. Then another message. "Savannah, I loved you, you know." What? Noah stared at the words. For a moment, he let himself feel it, the weight of what they had been before she burned it all down. Then he deleted the message. Some things weren't worth remembering. He stood up, exhaling. It was time to move on. Noah Calloway was no longer a husband. He was no longer a victim. He was free. And he would never look back. Noah sat in his truck, parked in a secluded lot just outside the city, staring at the distant skyline. The weight of the past few months pressed down on him, but it wasn't the same suffocating weight he had carried before. This was different. It was the weight of closure. Savannah and Asher had been arrested. Their reputations were in shambles. Everything they had built on lies and betrayal had crumbled. Noah had won. But as he stared at the city lights, a strange feeling settled in his chest. Was this victory? He had expected satisfaction, maybe even relief. But instead there was only silence. His phone buzzed beside him, snapping him out of his thoughts. An unknown number. He picked up. "Yeah." A deep sigh came through the speaker. "Savannah." "Noah." Her voice was hoarse, broken. "I need to talk to you." He exhaled, rubbing his temple. "I don't think we have anything left to say." A long pause. Then she whispered, "I have nothing left." Noah's fingers tightened around the wheel. She wasn't lying. She had lost everything. Her job had fired her. Her mother had stopped speaking to her. She had no money, no home, and now? She was facing jail time. But she had made her choice. Noah inhaled deeply. "That's not my problem anymore, Savannah." She let out a choked breath. "You really hate me, don't you?" Noah didn't answer right away. Did he hate her? Maybe once. But now, she was nothing to him. "You should have thought about this before you tore our life apart," he said finally. You made your bed. Now sleep in it. And with that he hung up. For the first time since this war started, Noah felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just freedom. Across town, Asher sat in his lawyer's office, a sweat-soaked mess. His empire was gone. His company was in ruins. His bank accounts? Frozen. His investors? Gone. And now the DA was offering a deal. His lawyer slid a paper across the table. If you take this, you'll serve minimal time. Maybe a year or two with good behavior. Asher's hands shook as he scanned the document. The only condition? He had to testify against Savannah. He let out a bitter laugh. She set me up first. His lawyer shrugged. Then consider this payback. Asher clenched his jaw. Savannah had thrown him under the bus the second things went bad. She had sold him out to save herself. Now, it was his turn. He grabbed the pen and signed. Savannah sat in the courtroom, her hands clenched in her lap. She had tried to fight, to talk her way out of this, to manipulate her way back into control. But nothing had worked. And now, as she watched Asher walk into the courtroom and take the witness stand, she felt something she had never truly felt before. Fear. Asher avoided her gaze as he testified against her. He confirmed everything. The false police report. The attempt to frame Noah. The financial fraud. With every word, Savannah's fate was sealed. When the verdict was read, she barely heard it. Guilty. Sentenced to 5 years in prison. Her vision blurred. It was over. She had lost. As she was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, her eyes locked onto Noah. He was standing in the back, arms crossed, watching her with the same cold, unreadable expression he had worn that night in the cafe. She wanted to scream. To beg. But all she saw was a man who had already moved on. As the doors closed behind her, she realized the truth. Noah Calloway had won. And this time, there was no coming back. Noah walked out of the courthouse, inhaling the crisp autumn air. For the first time in what felt like forever, he was truly free. No more deception. No more betrayal. No more Savannah. She was gone, locked away behind bars where she belonged. He loosened his tie and exhaled slowly, letting the tension in his body melt away. It was strange, this feeling of peace. 4 months, he had been living in the shadow of betrayal. He had spent so much time fighting back, planning his revenge, executing his strategy. But now there was nothing left to fight for. He had won. His phone buzzed. A message from an old friend in the military. Jameson, coming back to the team? We could use you. Noah stared at the message, tapping his fingers against the phone screen. He had a choice now. He could go back to the military, back to the only life he had ever known. The battlefield, the missions, the adrenaline of war. He could start fresh. A new city. A new purpose. A new life. For the first time in years, the future was his to decide. And that was the greatest victory of all. Asher sat alone in a dark apartment, staring at the piles of paperwork in front of him. His company? Gone. His investors? Gone. His future? Gone. After testifying against Savannah, he had cut a deal. But even that hadn't saved him. The tech world had blacklisted him. No one wanted to work with him. His empire had crumbled to dust. And worst of all, Noah had taken everything. His jaw clenched as he took another shot of whiskey. His phone sat on the table, Noah's name flashing across the screen from some new headline. Another news report about Savannah's sentencing. Another article about Noah walking away clean, untouchable, victorious. Asher slammed his glass down. How had it all gone so wrong? Because he had underestimated Noah. Because he had let greed and arrogance blind him. Because he had been stupid enough to believe he could get away with everything. And now he was nothing. A bitter laugh escaped his lips. Guess I should have seen that coming. Noah stood at the edge of the lake, watching the sun dip below the horizon. It had been weeks since the trial ended. Weeks since Savannah had been sentenced. Weeks since Asher had disappeared from his thoughts. And now, he was ready to say goodbye. He reached into his pocket, pulling out the small silver wedding band, the one he had worn for years. The symbol of a life he had once believed in. A life that no longer existed. He turned the ring in his fingers, letting himself feel the weight of it one last time. Then with a slow breath he let it go. The ring hit the water, sinking into the depths below. Gone. Just like Savannah. Just like the past. Noah Calloway didn't look back. Because this wasn't an ending. This was a new beginning. Noah walked through the streets of downtown, the city buzzing around him. He had spent so much time fighting, surviving, planning. But now that it was all over, there was something strange about the silence that followed. It wasn't loneliness. It was emptiness. For months, his mind had been consumed with revenge. Now that Savannah and Asher were gone from his life, he was left with a question he hadn't had time to consider. What now? He walked past a newsstand, glancing at the morning headlines. Savannah Calloway sentenced to 5 years, ex-husband breaks his silence. The article featured a blurry photo of him leaving the courthouse, his face unreadable. Noah smirked. Breaks his silence? He hadn't said a single word to the press. People had wanted interviews, TV appearances, book deals. He had turned them all down. Because he wasn't interested in fame. He was interested in moving forward. But moving forward meant facing what came next. And that was something he still had to figure out. Noah sat in a quiet cafe, sipping black coffee. The weather was cool, the skies overcast, a perfect reflection of his mood. A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. Mind if I join you? He looked up. Savannah's sister. His jaw clenched. Mia. She sat across from him without waiting for permission. You're hard to track down, you know? Noah raised a brow. That was the point. She sighed, stirring her tea. I'm not here to fight. Noah leaned back. Then what are you here for? Mia hesitated, her fingers tapping against the table. Savannah wrote you a letter. Noah's stomach twisted. Savannah. Even from behind bars, she was still trying to reach him. He exhaled. I don't want it. Mia studied him. You don't even want to know what it says? Noah's grip tightened on his coffee cup. No, he didn't. But the curiosity was there. Lingering. Mia slid an envelope across the table. Do whatever you want with it. Then she stood up and left. Noah stared at the letter. Then, after a long moment, he slid it into his jacket pocket. He wasn't ready to read it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Noah stood on his balcony that night, staring at the city lights. The envelope sat unopened on his desk. His mind warred with itself. Reading it would mean acknowledging the past. Ignoring it would mean moving forward. His phone buzzed. Jameson, we're leaving for a mission in 48 hours. You in? Noah's grip tightened on his phone. He had spent his entire life as a soldier. He knew how to fight, how to survive, how to destroy enemies. But was that who he wanted to be now? He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. The past was behind him. The future was waiting. It was time to decide who he was going to become. So dear audience, I hope you all have subscribed by now. And don't forget to leave your lovely and positive comments. Let me know how you found the story and which part you liked the most. Looking forward to your feedback. Noah sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the unopened envelope on his nightstand. 4 days it had sat there untouched. A silent reminder of Savannah's last attempt to reach him. He had told himself he didn't care. That he was done. But as much as he wanted to throw it away, something stopped him. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was a need for closure. Or maybe it was just one last test. With a slow breath, he picked up the envelope and tore it open. Noah, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know you probably hate me. And honestly, I deserve that. But I need you to know that I never wanted it to end like this. I thought I could have it all. You ushered the life I wanted. I thought I was smarter than everyone, that I could control everything. But I was wrong. You were always 10 steps ahead. And now I've lost everything. I don't expect you to feel sorry for me. I don't expect you to care. But I needed to say this. I loved you, Noah. Maybe not the way you deserved, but I did. And I hate that I ruined us. I hate that I threw away something real for something that was never worth it. I guess this is me saying I'm sorry. Even if it means nothing now. I hope one day you find happiness. Real happiness. Savannah. Noah let the letter fall to his lap. The words meant nothing to him. They didn't change what she had done. But as he stared at them, he realized something. For the first time since this all began, he felt nothing. No anger. No hatred. No regret. Savannah was just a ghost now. A mistake. A lesson learned. And now it was time to leave her where she belonged. In the past. A new beginning. Noah walked into the military recruitment office. The familiar smell of gun oil and coffee filling the air. The moment he stepped inside, heads turned. People recognized him. The soldier who had been betrayed. The man who had destroyed the people who tried to ruin him. But Noah wasn't here to talk about the past. Jameson greeted him with a nod. Didn't think you'd show. Noah smirked. Neither did I. Jameson leaned against the desk. You thinking about coming back? Noah exhaled. I don't know. For years the military had been his purpose. His reason for being. But now, he wasn't sure if this was where he belonged anymore. Jameson studied him. You're not the same guy who left, are you? Noah shook his head. No, he wasn't. Jameson sighed. Then maybe it's time for something new. Noah thought about that. For the first time in his life he had options. He could go back to war. He could take another mission. He could disappear into the battlefield and never look back. He could start over. Live for himself. The idea was terrifying. But maybe it was time. Noah gave Jameson a final nod before turning toward the door. Where are you going? Jameson called. Noah smirked. To figure out what's next. And with that he walked away. For good. Noah drove for hours. He didn't have a destination. He just drove. The road stretched out before him, endless and open. A symbol of freedom. He had spent so much time fighting battles that weren't worth it. Now, it was time to fight for himself. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expecting another news notification about Savannah's case. But it wasn't. It was a message from someone new. A known number. Hey. I know we haven't talked in a while, but if you're ever in town, I'd love to grab a drink. Noah stared at the message. He wasn't sure if he was ready for that. But maybe he was. He smirked, tossing his phone onto the passenger seat. For the first time in a long time he wasn't looking behind him. He was looking ahead. And the future had never looked brighter. Noah sat on the hood of his truck, parked on a cliffside overlooking the ocean. The salty breeze whipped against his skin, the waves crashing below. For the first time in a long time, there was no war to fight. No revenge to plan. No past haunting him. Just him and the open road. He had spent years living for others. First for the military, then for Savannah. And when she betrayed him, he had spent every ounce of his energy destroying her. Now that it was over, he realized something. He had never actually lived for himself. His phone buzzed beside him. Jameson. Jameson, got a last-minute contract if you're still looking for work. Noah stared at the message. For years his purpose had been simple: deploy, survive, come home, repeat. But now, did he really want to keep living that life? The military had given him everything: discipline, loyalty, purpose. But it had also taken everything. Noah exhaled, typing his response. Noah, I think I'm done, man. Jameson's reply was immediate. Jameson, damn. Didn't think I'd see the day. Noah smirked, shaking his head. Maybe he hadn't either. But for the first time since this all began, he was choosing himself. And it felt damn good. The roadside diner was nearly empty, the neon lights flickering against the dark pavement. Noah sat at the counter, nursing a black coffee. The waitress, a brunette in her mid-30s, approached with a warm smile. You passing through? Noah nodded. Something like that. She topped off his coffee. Where you headed? He chuckled. Still figuring that out. She smirked. Well, if you find out, let me know. Been working here 10 years and I still haven't figured it out myself. Noah raised his cup in a silent toast. To lost souls, then. The waitress laughed, shaking her head. You don't look lost to me. Just a man who's finally making his own choices. Noah paused. She wasn't wrong. For so long he had let life happen to him. Now, he was in control. As he took another sip of coffee, he noticed a familiar face walk through the door. Mia. Savannah's sister. She spotted him instantly, her eyes widening. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she approached. Noah, she said softly. Didn't expect to see you here. Noah met her gaze. Didn't expect to be here. She slid into the seat across from him. How are you? He smirked. Better than I've been in a long time. Mia studied him for a moment, then nodded. Good. You deserve that. For the first time in his life, Noah believed it. Noah stood outside the diner, staring at the horizon. The road stretched out in front of him, open, endless, full of possibility. He had spent so long stuck in the past. But now, it was time to move forward. Mia leaned against the doorframe, watching him. So, Where to next? Noah smirked. Wherever the road takes me. She chuckled. That's a good answer. He glanced at her. You ever thought about leaving this place? Mia sighed, looking out at the quiet town. More times than I can count. Noah nodded toward his truck. Come with me. She raised an eyebrow. Is that an invitation? He smirked. It's an option. Mia studied him for a moment, then grinned. You know what? Maybe it's time for a change. Noah climbed into his truck, the engine rumbling beneath him. For the first time in his life he had no plan, no mission, no battle to fight. And yet, he had never felt more alive. As the truck rolled down the highway, he glanced at the rearview mirror one last time. The past was behind him. And for the first time he wasn't looking back. He was looking ahead. And the road had never looked better. Noah and Mia drove for hours, the open road stretching before them like an unwritten story. The radio hummed softly, and for the first time in forever, Noah felt at peace. No ghosts. No anger. No revenge to plan. Just the road, the future, and a chance to live again. Mia glanced at him from the passenger seat. So, what's next for you? Noah smirked. You tell me. You're the one who just walked away from your old life. She laughed, shaking her head. Yeah, I guess I did. A comfortable silence settled between them. Mia's voice softened. Do you ever think about her? Noah's hands tightened around the wheel. Not in the way I used to. For months, Savannah had occupied every thought in his head. No, she was just a memory. A mistake. A lesson learned. Mia nodded. I was angry at her too, you know? Noah raised an eyebrow. She had everything, Mia continued. A man who loved her, a life people would kill for. And she threw it away. Noah exhaled. Some people never realize what they have until it's too late. Mia tilted her head. And what about you? Do you know what you have now? Noah thought about that. He had freedom. He had choices. For the first time in years he had himself. And that was enough. 2 years later. The prison yard was silent, except for the quiet rustle of wind against steel fences. Savannah sat on the cold bench, staring at the gray sky above. It had been 2 years. 2 years of loneliness. 2 years of regret. 2 years without Noah. She had once believed she could manipulate her way back. That she could convince someone to save her. But no one had come. Not her mother. Not her friends. Not Asher. No one. She had lost everything. A guard approached. Calloway, you got a letter? Savannah blinked. From who? The guard shrugged, handing her the envelope. Her heart pounded as she tore it open. Inside was a single piece of paper with just 4 words written on it. You got what you deserved. Savannah's hands shook. No. She wanted to scream. To throw the letter. But deep down she knew. He was right. Asher walked through the crowded city streets, a nobody in a world that had forgotten him. He had no money. No career. The fraud charges had destroyed him. The deal he had cut to throw Savannah under the bus had given him minimal jail time, but the cost? His name. His legacy. His future. He was nothing now. And the worst part? Noah was still out there. Winning. No matter where Asher went, he saw Noah's name. In the military, in business, in whispers of respect. He had lost. And he would never recover. For the first time in his life, Asher understood true failure. And it burned. The late afternoon sun painted the coastal town in hues of orange and gold. A fresh start. A place where no one knew his name. Noah stepped out of his truck, stretching his muscles as the salty breeze brushed against his skin. This was what freedom felt like. For years he had lived in a cycle, duty, betrayal, revenge. He had spent so much time fighting battles that weren't worth it. Now, for the first time, he had no mission, no orders, no enemies lurking in the shadows. Just himself. He walked into a small coffee shop, the kind of place where regulars gathered, chatting about their day. The air smelled like fresh pastries and espresso, a stark contrast to the tension-filled war zones and courtrooms he had lived through. First time here? The barista asked, smiling as she wiped down the counter. Noah nodded, scanning the menu. Yeah. Just passing through. She smirked. That's what they all say. But this town has a way of keeping people. He chuckled, shaking his head. Maybe. Maybe not. Taking his coffee, he found a seat near the window, watching life move around him. People laughing, kids chasing each other outside, couples walking hand in hand. A life he had never allowed himself to imagine. His phone buzzed. Jameson. Jameson, just checking in. Thought you'd be halfway across the world by now. Noah smirked, staring at the ocean waves rolling onto the shore. He replied, Noah, not this time. I think I'm done chasing things that don't matter. Jameson responded instantly. Jameson, damn. Never thought I'd see the day. Noah chuckled, shaking his head. Neither did he. For years, his life had been dictated by battles, betrayals, and revenge. But now he was finally free. Noah sat on the edge of a wooden pier, watching the sunset disappear beyond the horizon. Everything felt still. Peaceful. He had won. Savannah? Gone. Asher? A forgotten mistake. The pain of betrayal? A scar but no longer a wound. And yet, as he stared at the water, he wondered, was it all worth it? For months, revenge had been his only purpose. Destroying Savannah, watching Asher's empire crumble, proving he wasn't someone to be played with. But what had it truly cost him? Noah ran a hand through his hair, inhaling deeply. Had he let their betrayal consume too much of him? Or was this exactly where he was meant to be? He had two choices that night. He could have walked away, let them live their lives, let karma do its work. Instead, he had orchestrated every move. Made sure they suffered. Would he do it again if he had the chance? Maybe that's a question for you. If you were in Noah's place, what would you have done? Would you have gone after them? Or walked away? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. And if you love this story, hit like, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who loves a great revenge thriller. We'll meet again soon for another insane, mind-blowing revenge story. Until then, stay strong and never let betrayal break you. See you in the next one.